He didn't say much at Big Sky Firearms. Wore a faded flannel, jeans, and a worn baseball cap. Just wanted to see an old rifle he hadn't touched since Vietnam. Until the young clerk saw the tattoo on his forearm, while he reached for the display case, and everything went quiet. Welcome to The Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of silence, respect, and forgotten brotherhood, tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button. These voices matter. The morning air in Billings, Montana carried the kind of cold that settled in your bones. It was just past 9 a.m. when James Patterson pulled his old Ford F-150 into the parking lot of Big Sky Firearms. The truck was older than most of the staff inside. Faded blue paint, a dent on the passenger door that had been there since 2003, and a bumper sticker so sun-bleached you couldn't read it anymore. Jim stepped out slowly. Not because he was frail, but because he'd learned a long time ago that rushing gets you killed. He wore what he always wore: faded Wrangler jeans, scuffed work boots with red dust still on the soles, and a brown flannel shirt rolled to the elbows. On his head sat a plain navy blue baseball cap. No logo, no team, no flag, just fabric and thread, worn soft by decades. He pushed open the glass door. A small bell chimed. Inside, the shop smelled like gun oil, leather, and new cardboard. Racks of rifles lined the walls like soldiers at attention. Glass cases displayed handguns under halogen lights. Behind the counter stood Tyler Brooks, 25 years old, clean-shaven, wearing a black Big Sky Firearms polo shirt that looked 2 sizes too tight. He was scrolling through his phone, barely looking up when Jim walked in. "Morning," Tyler said, not quite meeting Jim's eyes. Jim nodded once, simple, respectful, the way he'd been taught. 50 years ago, he walked slowly toward the back wall, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the displays. His boots made soft thuds on the concrete floor. Tyler watched him from the corner of his eye. Another old guy, probably here to waste time talking about the good old days. Jim stopped in front of a rifle mounted high on the wall. It was an M14, old, wood stock, iron sights, the kind of weapon that hadn't been standard issue in decades. Jim stared at it for a long moment. His jaw tightened slightly. His breathing slowed. Then he turned and walked back to the counter. "Excuse me," Jim said quietly. His voice was low, gravelly, like old leather. Tyler looked up, slightly annoyed. "Yeah? I was wondering if you still carry that M14 on the back wall," Jim said. "Haven't held one since '72. Tyler smirked. "That thing? Yeah, it's a collector's piece. Not really meant for shooting anymore." "I didn't ask to shoot it," Jim said evenly. "Just wanted to hold it." For a moment, Tyler leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "That rifle's heavier than it looks, Pops. Might be a bit much for your back." Jim didn't react. He just stood there, calm, waiting. Tyler sighed dramatically. "Look, man, unless you're planning to buy it, I can't just pull stuff off the wall. Store policy." "I understand," Jim said. "Besides," Tyler added with a grin, "that's a Vietnam-era rifle. You'd probably need both hands just to lift it." Jim's expression didn't change. He just nodded slowly, turned, and walked toward the door. Tyler called after him, half joking, "Maybe try the sporting goods store, Pops. They've got lighter stuff." Jim paused at the door. For a moment, it looked like he might say something. But he didn't. He just pushed it open and stepped out into the cold Montana morning. The bell chimed again. Tyler shook his head, laughing to himself. Old guy's man, always living in the past. He went back to scrolling his phone. What Tyler didn't know was that the name on Jim Patterson's dog tag still meant something, and in exactly 1 hour, he was going to find out why. But before we get there, you need to understand who Jim Patterson really was. Jim drove home in silence. No radio, no music, just the hum of the engine and the wind against the windows. His house sat on the edge of town. Small, single story, white paint peeling in places, a gravel driveway, a chain link fence that needed fixing. He parked the truck, turned off the engine, and sat for a moment. His hands rested on the steering wheel. Weathered, calloused, scarred in places. Most people wouldn't notice. Inside, the house was quiet. No TV, no voices. Just the ticking of an old wall clock in the kitchen. Jim made coffee. Black, no sugar. The way he'd been drinking it since 1971. He sat at the kitchen table and stared out the window at the mountains in the distance. On the wall behind him hung a single photograph. 8 men, mud-caked, sunburned, exhausted, standing in a jungle clearing with their arms slung over each other's shoulders. Jim was in the center, younger, leaner, eyes sharp and alive. 3 of those men never made it home. Jim took a sip of coffee and closed his eyes. He didn't need to remember. He never forgot. Back at Big Sky Firearms, the morning continued like any other. A few customers came and went. Tyler rang up sales, restocked shelves, and checked his phone every few minutes. Around 10:15 a.m., the door chimed again. A young man walked in, mid-20s, buzz cut, navy blue t-shirt with a small trident logo on the chest. His posture was straight, his eyes sharp. His name was Connor Mulls, Navy SEAL E5, stationed at a training facility 2 states over. He was in Montana visiting family, killing time before his next deployment. Morning, Connor said, nodding at Tyler. Hey, man, what can I do for you? Tyler asked. Just browsing. Looking for a good range day. Cool. Let me know if you need anything. Connor walked the aisles slowly, scanning the inventory. He stopped near the ammunition section and bent down to tie his boot. That's when he noticed something on the floor. A small piece of paper. Looked like it had fallen out of someone's pocket. He picked it up. It was a receipt. From a VA clinic. The name at the top. James Patterson. Connor stared at it for a moment. That name sounded familiar. Very familiar. He walked back to the counter. Hey, was there an older guy in here earlier? Connor asked. Tyler looked up. Yeah, why? Did he drop this? Connor held up the receipt. Tyler shrugged. Maybe. Guy came in asking about some old Vietnam rifle. Acted like he was gonna cry or something. I told him it wasn't for sale. Connor's jaw tightened. You told him what? Relax, dude. I was just being real. That thing's a collector's piece. Not for some old dude who probably can't even lift it. Connor didn't respond immediately. He was staring at the name on the receipt. James Patterson, Navy SEAL Team 2. Vietnam. The James Patterson. Connor's heart started pounding. Did he have a tattoo? Connor asked, voice quiet but firm. Tyler blinked. What? On his arm. A trident. Did you see it? Tyler thought for a second. I don't know, man. I wasn't really paying attention. Connor placed the receipt on the counter slowly. His eyes locked on Tyler. You just kicked out a living legend. Tyler laughed nervously. What are you talking about? Connor pulled out his phone. He typed quickly, then turned the screen toward Tyler. It was a declassified military archive page. Staff Sergeant James Patterson, Navy SEAL Team 2, Vietnam, 1971 to 1973. Silver Star, Bronze Star, 2 Purple Hearts. Extracted 7 men under fire during Operation Phoenix. Refused medevac. walked 14 miles with a bullet in his leg, carried 2 wounded men on his back. Tyler's face went pale. Connor leaned in. And you told him he couldn't lift a rifle. What happened next would change everything. Connor stepped outside. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Anger, respect, disbelief. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It rang twice. Mills, what's up? The voice on the other end was gravelly, authoritative. Chief, you're not going to believe this. Try me. Connor took a breath. I'm in Billings, Montana. I just watched some punk clerk disrespect James Patterson. The James Patterson. Silence. Then, say that again. Patterson. SEAL Team 2. Vietnam. Silver Star. The guy's a ghost. Chief. And this kid told him he couldn't hold an M14 because he's too old. Another pause. Where is he now? Patterson? I don't know. But the shop's still open. Stand by. The line went dead. Connor stood there in the parking lot, staring at the mountains in the distance. He didn't know what was about to happen, but he knew it was going to be big. 15 minutes later, Connor's phone buzzed. A text. On our way. ETA 45 minutes. Stay there. Connor's eyes widened. They were coming. At 11:03 a.m., the first vehicle pulled into the parking lot. A black Chevy Suburban. Tinted windows. No plates. Then another. Then another. 3 vehicles in total. The engines idled. Tyler, inside the shop, glanced out the window. What the hell? The doors opened. One by one, 12 men stepped out. They weren't in uniform. But you could tell. The way they moved. The way they scanned. The way they stood. Tactical pants. Boots. Plain T-shirts. Some with ball caps. Some with sunglasses. But every single one of them had the same look. Silent. Focused. Unbreakable. Connor stood near the door. One of the men, older, graying beard, chest covered in faded tattoos, walked up to him. Mills? Yes, Chief. Where? Connor nodded toward the shop. The chief turned to the others. He didn't say a word. He just nodded. And they walked. 12 Navy SEALs, walking in formation. Boots. Crunching gravel. No voices. No rush. Just presence. Tyler looked up from his phone. The bell chimed. The door opened. And one by one, they entered. Tyler froze. The shop, which moments ago had felt spacious, now felt very, very small. The chief stepped forward. He didn't smile, didn't shout. He just looked at Tyler with the kind of stare that makes your blood run cold. Where is he? Tyler's mouth went dry. Who? The man who came in here an hour ago. The one you disrespected? Tyler's voice cracked. I don't. The chief placed something on the counter. A challenge coin. Brass. Heavy. Worn smooth. On one side, the SEAL trident. On the other, a name. James Patterson. SEAL Team 2, 1971. That man, the chief said slowly, carried me out of a firefight in 1989. I was 22. Bleeding out. He was already retired. Came back as a contractor. Saved my life. Another SEAL stepped forward. He trained me in Coronado. Never raised his voice. Never had to. Best operator I've ever seen. A third spoke. My father served with him in 72. Came home because of him. I exist because James Patterson didn't leave men behind. The chief leaned forward, his voice low but cutting. And you? Told him he couldn't lift a rifle. Tyler couldn't speak. His throat had closed. The chief straightened. We're not here for revenge. We don't need an apology. He picked up the challenge coin. But he won't speak for himself. He never does. So we're speaking for him. The chief turned. Let's go. And just like that, all 12 of them walked out silent, respectful, leaving behind a shop that would never be the same. But the story didn't end there. Tyler stood frozen, behind the counter for a full minute. After they left, his hands were shaking. His heart pounded in his chest like a war drum. A customer who had been browsing in the corner walked up slowly. "You okay, kid?" Tyler didn't answer. The customer, an older man with a gray mustache and a Vietnam veteran ball cap, shook his head. "You just disrespected a legend, son. Those men don't forget, and neither will this town." The customer turned and walked out. Tyler was alone. By noon, the story had already started spreading. Connor Mills posted a single photo to a private veterans forum. It was a picture of the 12 SEALs standing outside Big Sky Firearms. No faces visible, just silhouettes, boots, presents. The caption: "When you disrespect a SEAL, you get all of them." James Patterson, SEAL Team 2, Vietnam, never forgotten. Within an hour, it had 2,000 shares. By 2 p.m. It was on veteran Facebook groups across the country. By 4 p.m. Local news had picked it up. The headline: Navy SEALs show up to Montana. Gun shop in silent tribute to disrespected Vietnam veteran. By the next morning, Big Sky Firearms was flooded. Not with customers, with veterans. Old men in ball caps, middle-aged men in leather jackets, young men in fatigues. They didn't come to buy. They came to stand. One by one, they walked in, placed challenge coins on the counter, and left without a word. Air Force, Marines, Army Rangers, Coast Guard. All branches, all ears, silent, respectful, united. Tyler tried to work, but every time the bell chimed, his stomach dropped. By 10 a.m., the owner of Big Sky Firearms, a man named Dale Whitmore, walked in. He'd seen the posts, read the articles, gotten dozens of angry calls. He looked at Tyler. "Pack your things." Tyler blinked. "What? You're done?" "But no." Dale's voice was firm. "You disrespected a man who served this country before you were even born. A man who saved lives, who earned his place in history." Dale pointed to the door. "Get out." Tyler stood there, stunned. "But now." Tyler grabbed his jacket and walked out. The bell chimed one last time. And then something unexpected happened. That afternoon, Jim Patterson pulled his old Ford F-150 into the parking lot of Big Sky Firearms once again. He didn't know what had happened. He'd simply come back to return the receipt he'd found in his truck. Thought it might be important to someone. He pushed open the door. The shop was full, but not with shoppers. With men standing in silence. Veterans. Jim froze. Dale Whitmore, the owner, stepped forward. "Mr. Patterson." Jim nodded slowly. I think I left something here yesterday." Dale smiled softly. "You didn't leave anything, sir. But a lot of people wanted to make sure you got something back." He gestured to the back wall. "There." Carefully taken down and placed on a soft cloth on the counter was the M14. "It's yours," Dale said. Jim's eyes widened. "I can't." "You already did," Dale interrupted. 50 years ago. This rifle doesn't belong in a display case. It belongs with the man who carried one like it through hell and brought his brothers home." Jim stared at the rifle. His hands trembled. Slowly, he reached out and picked it up. It felt exactly like he remembered. Heavy, solid, real. One of the veterans in the room, an older man with a Marine Corps jacket, stepped forward and saluted. Then another. Then another. One by one, every man in that shop stood at attention and saluted. James Patterson. Jim's throat tightened. He hadn't been saluted in 30 years. He slowly set the rifle down, straightened his back, and returned the salute. Tears didn't fall, but his eyes glistened. For the first time in decades, James Patterson felt seen. The story went national within 48 hours. Major news outlets picked it up. Montana Gun Shop becomes symbol of veteran respect after SEAL Team tribute. Forgotten hero honored by brothers who never forgot. Dale Whitmore made a decision. He mounted a small brass plate above the door. It read, "In honor of SSG James Patterson, SEAL Team 2, and all who serve silently. Respect is earned, not given." Jim never came back to the shop, not because he was angry, but because he didn't need to. The M14 sat in his living room now, mounted above the fireplace. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that some men don't need to speak to be heard, that some stories don't need to be told to matter, and that respect, real respect, is never forgotten. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like James Patterson? Someone who served quietly, who never asked for thanks, who carried history in their hands and let the world forget until someone finally remembered. Say their name in the comments. Share their story. Let others know who they were. Because here at the Human Stories, we believe that the most powerful voices don't shout. They wait. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe and help us make sure these voices are never forgotten. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, if you ever see a quiet man at a gun shop, a diner, or a hardware store, reloading slow, standing steady, eyes that have seen things you can't imagine, watch his hands. You might be standing next to history.